There are 7 days left in President Trump's term, and although he failed to win re-election, his coalition of conservative populist voters has grown and diversified. In his latest op-ed, our next guest says the GOP is trending toward a more multiracial working-class party, and their divorce from corporate America can't come soon enough. We've got the op-ed editor of the New York Post and author of the forthcoming book, The Unbroken Thread, Discovering the Wisdom of Tradition in an Age of Chaos. Sohrab Ahmari is with us now, and he joins us. Sohrab, good to see you.
Good to see you, Buck.
So you're saying that we can show everybody at home just some of the companies that are cutting off political donations, of course only to Republicans, because that's how this game works. Facebook, FedEx, Airbnb, BlackRock, you got all these different companies. Amazon, UPS, Marriott, that one actually was a little bit of a surprise. You got all these different companies. And you're saying that this is just showing us what's already been happening. Explain this trend, Sohrab.
Yeah, Buck. I mean, I think Republicans are accustomed to thinking of themselves as the party of business, or a lot of people are, and there's certainly that in the party. But as far as the Republican Party is a party that's committed to, let's say, the family, we began to see the divorce between conservatism and the Republican Party on the one hand and big business, going back to the religious liberty, the RFRA religious liberty battles in Indiana and elsewhere. You'll remember where suddenly companies whom no one elected to weigh in on public policy issues waged war against states, whether it was because they wanted certain kind of bathroom laws to protect biological women's privacy or religious liberty issues and so forth. So it was a trend that had begun, but now it's accelerated in the aftermath of the admittedly gross and stupid mob assault on Capitol Hill. But I see it as a good trend, because the truth is that Republicans need to face reality, and that reality is that the balance of social forces is now in a way where Democrats are the party of upscale suburbs, of finance, of big tech, of Silicon Valley, of San Francisco, and Republicans are increasingly representing a working class constituency. It's a diverse one regionally. It ranges from the Rust Belt to the Sun Belt. Ethnically, as you know, President Trump, despite all the talk of racism and so forth, expanded the GOP's appeal to an astonishing degree with Hispanics and young black men. So that's the party we have, and those people don't have representation. Those people, in fact, the elite consensus championed by both Democrats and kind of never Trump establishment Republicans did not work out for those people. And that's why they turned to President Trump in 2016 and then consolidated around him again in November. So that's the reality, and that's who Republicans, I think, should represent. And that's the argument I make in the piece.
And do you think that we should also be mounting some kind of effort? I mean, is it more a focus, Sohrab, going forward, that people should try to have their own, this is what comes up with Parler and the censorship we've seen, create companies that are explicitly conservative? Or is it just to push back on the existing companies, make them feel the financial pinch of being such clear left-wing activists in their pronouncements? How do we handle this avalanche of woke corporatism?
Well, I think I would suggest a two-pronged strategy. The first prong is, yes, conservatives need to set up their own alternative infrastructure. I dismiss that. I always thought that, I'll be okay, we'll all be okay. But then the, events of the past few months suddenly made me realize, no, we really need something like Parler. I was signed up for Parler, and now I can't access my Parler account. So I don't deny that. But on the whole, there's a tendency among conservatives to be like, we will just set up our own entirely different nation, our own banks, our own, tech companies, our own movie studios, and so on and so forth. And I think that's, in the long term, is not the solution. I get it as a short-term stopgap and defensive, but in the long term, there is a public square, and conservatives have as much right to it as anyone else. And so we need to push for, conservatives to be obviously winning elections, but also changing laws so that these corporations aren't so powerful. In many respects, the fact that corporate power is so overwhelmingly dominant now in America is a result of policies pursued by Republicans over 3-4 generations, certainly in the post-war era. And that has not worked out well for the people who now vote Republican.
So I think that's an interesting insight, because the way you set it up in the piece, Republicans were very almost free market absolutist in their approach toward corporations, and we saw the growth of, particularly over the last 20 or 30 years, these mega global corporations, right? This isn't just a successful American company. These are companies that have tremendous reach all around the world. And now it seems like, they've just been seized by the woke left, whether they were built by them or they were part of them in the early days or not. In the case of Silicon Valley, you could argue they probably were at some level. But some of these other companies, I don't think anybody looks at JP Morgan Chase and goes, oh yeah, that was the result of wokeness. It goes back quite a ways if you look at the history of that company.
Yeah, so we conservatives are accustomed to, we want to defend liberty, and that's a good thing, but we're accustomed to only seeing public threats to liberty, meaning the government doing something to take our liberty away. But now, especially recently, there's this rude awakening that, look, private actors can also be tyrants. And as you know, because I know you read, political theory, a lot of the ancient political theory, that Greco-Roman political theory, was concerned especially with the threat of oligarchies and of private interests that seize the entire public square for the interests of a narrow elite. And that's something that, a lot of Western thought has gone into how to prevent that. And that conservative mindset that just said private sector, private all the time, left us vulnerable to this new kind of tyranny. So I happen to be, and I think President Trump's instincts are still right on this, even if he didn't articulate them all the time, that we actually need, for conservatism's sake, we need a reassertion of the public, of the prerogatives of the commons, because otherwise, we can tell ourselves, oh, wonderful, I'm getting oppressed, but it's a private actor doing it, so I guess it's fine. That's not how our founders envisioned liberty. And I think we need to think about how we can bring our conservative mentality to bear on the public.
Sohrab Ahmari, op-ed editor of the New York Post. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks so much for joining. Hey, Team Buck, just want to say thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more great content from The First, please click that subscribe button.